Good afternoon. The Finance Committee is called to order. Mr. Johnson, are there any public comments?
Yes, sir. We have two public speakers, the first being Omar Vera.
All right, now it's on. All right. Greetings, Finance Committee. Welcome back to another edition of the committee. All right. I reiterate everything from last month, but there's one particular thing that really that still annoys, and it's regarding the fee when purchasing new Metro cards in the subway. I understand why the fee was put back in, like, what was it, 2013? But the fact of the matter is, it shouldn't be fair for customers to have to purchase a new card once theirs expire and have to pay an extra $1 for something that they're not even going to get any benefit of at all. It's just $1 thrown away, and that's, like I said, it's like it's not fair. They should eliminate the $1 fee for MetroCard and make all MetroCard purchases, like I said, just purchase the fare. That's it. No fees. It doesn't make sense, like because then it comes up as kind of like robbery. You're taking money off our wallets, our hard-earned cash, and I mean we're already contributing to the transit system, both by the flat fare of the subways and by distance fares and commuter rails and even by the tolls when people drive. But you do not really need the $1 fee. Like, just please consider doing away with that. Make all purchases free, and then just let us purchase the fare. And that should be about it. And other than that, everything's on track. And I do like the tap and go for the future. Thank you, and see you in CPOC.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Murray Bowden.
Metro North Railroad wrote a report on the red box at Roaring Brook Railroad Crossing. It is in the public record what they wrote. What they wrote is wrong 100%. The Federal Highway Administration Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices specifically says that the box where you don't want traffic to park is a white rectangle with optional inside markings. Any accident that happens now at any railroad crossing with a red box creates a situation where the MTA is financially liable because you've been previously notified of an unsafe condition. Not only am I telling you this today, it is in the public record many times, and with big data, the ability to search these records. The first accident, some young lawyer is going to search the data, come up with my name because it's been tied to it for 20 years. I've spoken at it here. In your report, it says this video is part of the permanent record of the MTA. So we have now created a situation where you are notified that the information given to the president of Metro North is incorrect. That's the tip of the iceberg, because beyond that is the railroad cars that they are buying are outdated for years. They're buying married pair, and they should be buying...
Mr. Bowden, please conclude your remarks. Your time is finished.
Well, those cars are financial liability, are wasted money. 7th Avenue line has a new car design. Why isn't Metro North buying similar cars? Thank you.
That concludes the public speakers.
Thank you. The minutes of the October meeting are in the committee book. Is there a motion to approve? Second. Are there any comments, changes, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? The minutes are approved. Mr. Johnson, next to the budget and capital cycle items.
Right. We have no changes to the work plan. With regard to the budget and capital cycle items, we don't do a budget watch presentation in November. Mr. Foran will be presenting a full November financial plan at a joint meeting of the Finance and Full Board meeting on Wednesday. So next on the agenda would be Finance Watch with Pat McCoy.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Finance Watch appears on page 22 of Director's desk today. The first transaction you see there, I reported on that last month, so I won't go over that again. If there's any questions, I'll take those. But next we had two remarketings to report, the 2011 Bs and the 2012 G4s. Those were priced at a 67% on 1 month LIBOR plus a spread of 55 basis points. We were very pleased with that outcome. Next we have the TRB 2014 D2s. And in that instance, we priced the variable rate notes with at a cost of SIFMA plus a spread of 45 basis points. And a very good outcome for that particular product. Next, we have a transaction that priced in the market last week. We're very pleased to report the TBTA refunding bonds 2017C. We achieved an all-in TIC of 2.81%. The proceeds of the bond issue will both be used to refund outstanding indebtedness, as well as to pay off a ban that's coming due on February 14th, a portion of that ban. In total, we generated, on the refunding side, substantial savings due to just very attractive market conditions. The order book for the retail offering was $975 million of retail orders for the bonds offered, and the next day for priority pricing, over $2.3 billion of priority orders. That allowed us to really tighten the pricing very attractively to levels that we've never, quite frankly, seen on this credit. The long bond that was a 25-year maturity priced at a 12 basis point spread to the high grade index. Typically we would see a 20 to 30 basis point spread for that tenor. So just reflects the very attractive market conditions, and the refunding savings were quite meaningful and substantial, a total of $55.5 million in net present value savings on the issue. And that transaction was senior managed by one of our rotating senior managers, Siebert Cisneros Shank. So good job there. Next we have our normal fuel hedge, which was priced on October 26th. And there you see we executed a purchase of 2.6 million gallons of ULSD at an all-in price of $1.76 a gallon. And the winning bid there was from J. Aaron, Goldman Sachs. Lastly, I just wanted to report on some matters that you obviously are reading about in the press, and this has to do with the fact that down in Washington we now have a House bill and a Senate piece of legislation that are looking to do comprehensive tax reform. Why is that important to us? Well, consistent with both the House proposal and the Senate proposal is a proposal to eliminate advance refundings. And that's obviously what I just reported on the TBTA side. So this is a tool that we have used often, and so we just want to make sure it's on your radar screen to the degree that you get questions about it. It is a tool that we use to manage our debt portfolio. We have a substantial debt portfolio, as you know, but we're always employing activities and engaging with market work to lower the cost of that portfolio, and advance refundings is one of those strategies we've used. So we just wanted to make sure this was on your radar screen. The effective date would be January 1st of 18, so that's, quite frankly, we're fortunate that we've been taking advantage of advance refundings in 2016, and again this year. The TBTA deal marks the third deal we've done this year, and we're teeing up a second one, an additional one that would price next week.
Could you explain the rationale behind the elimination of advance refundings? I mean, I would think it would actually sort of save, in theory, the national government money by reducing tax-exempt interest costs?
Well, I think they score it differently. They score it as a subsidy that the federal government's providing to state and local issuers who issue tax-exempt bonds. And so this is a way for the legislators to shift the tax consequences from one side of the tax ledger to another, if you will.
Let me. The real issue is with an advance refunding, you have two sets of tax-exempt bonds outstanding at the same time. The original bonds that may not have a call date for 5 or 8 or 10 years will stay outstanding, because you take the proceeds of the new tax-exempt bonds and invest it in U.S. Treasuries that go into an escrow. So their concern is, for a certain period of time, you have two issues of tax-exempt debt outstanding, and they view that as a revenue loser. We can still, if this were to become law, do a current refunding. That is, refund bonds within 90 days of their call date. So we'll be able to do that. It just means that savings may not be available to us, however, for years in the future. But that's the real issue. It's two issues of debt outstanding at the same time. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes Finance Watch, unless there's any questions. Okay, thank you.
We ready for headquarters and all agency items?
Yes, thanks. So we have 4 report and information items. The first one on page 32 is the station maintenance receivable update for the period April 2016 through March of 2017. We had $166.1 million billed, and all of it has been received by all the counties. Any questions? Next item for your information is the review and assessment of the Finance Committee Charter, which can be found on pages 35 through 38. The charter is included on the agenda annually so that the members of the Finance Committee can review and assess the adequacy of that charter. Okay.
And I was asked to make this comment that, again, the charter is submitted for your review. There are some non-substantive changes which are redlined in the document. The Corporate Governance Committee will review the changes when it meets in December, and then will submit all the charters for approval to the full board.
Thanks, Bob. Third item on this agenda for information is the report on Emergency Order 168 procurement actions, and that's on page 39. We do that every month. Any questions? Finally, the last item is a draft of the Independent Auditor's Review Report of the MTA Consolidated Interim Financial Statements for the 6 months ended June 30th, 2017. That's going to be presented and voted on today at the Audit Committee meeting. So next we're going to move to procurements, and David Ross is here to discuss those.
Two of them are under $150,000 arts for transit initiatives. One is for a Metro North overhead bridge on the New Haven line at 6th Avenue, for the 6th Avenue Bridge, and the other is at a Long Island Railroad station on the Ronkonkoma branch. It's the Wyandanch station. Both of those are under $150,000. By far and away, the largest item is with Corvell Healthcare Corporation to handle all agency medical bill review and payment services. The gross number you have in front of you, the $14.7 million, is for actually all 8 years and includes a 10% contingency. It seems like a lot. The flip side of this is they've recovered a ton of money over the past 8 years. If you look at the prior contract, which is quite analogous to the one you have in front of you, there were $740 million worth of billings that were received. And over that period, they saved $413 million, or 46% or 56% of total billings through their reviews. So it has been a very successful initiative, and they additionally provide services as a third party, handling third-party administration claim services for workers' comp, no fault, general and auto liability claims, and maintain an automated repository for accident and claims-related data. We did receive 3 proposals in response to this RFP, and the pricing offered by Corvell, who is the incumbent, was actually 13% lower than the second highest-ranked technical proposal. So they've provided satisfactory services and quite a return on investment over the past the prior contract that this one will replace.
Is there a motion? Second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Abstaining? Opposed? The procurements carry. Please proceed.
Okay, for Metro North Railroad, there's one non-competitive sole source procurement for a grand total of $500,000 for a miscellaneous service agreement to provide engineering services required to meet an urgent need to support positive train control, 220 megahertz radio frequency testing. The term of the contract will be up to 42 months to cover both pre-implementation PTC services and to provide support during the initial phase of PTC operations. Metro North will receive the benefit of pricing negotiated by the U.S. General Services Administration under its contract, and the procurement is to be funded by M&R's operating budget. There are no items for Long Island Railroad. And for New York City Transit and MTA bus operations, there's one competitive procurement for New York City Transit with a grand total of $100 million for an RFP to award 8 competitively solicited consultant contracts for indefinite quantity architectural and engineering design services for miscellaneous federally funded construction and security projects. The cost of the contract will be funded with FTA funds, and a award certificate will be issued for each task order prior to award.
Motion to approve. Second. Are there any questions or comments on these procurements? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining. The procurements carry. Mr. Ross.
So for bridges and tunnels, there's one non-competitive procurement for a total of $548,858 requesting board approval for the one-year contract for the installation and maintenance of a video audit-based system to monitor the performance of its new RRT, funding in the amount of $548,858 available in the operating budget under GL 176585.
Motion to approve. Second. Are there any questions or comments on this procurement? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining. This procurement carries.
And there are no items for First Mutual Transportation Assurance Company.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Mr. Jennison.
Okay, the MTA Consolidated Financial and Operational Reports are on pages 54 to 107, and next will be real estate with Jeff.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, everybody. We have 6 action items for you this month, each as usual, the subject of a staff summary. On a personal note, on a personal note, I think most of you know that I've announced that I'm retiring as Director of Real Estate. I do expect to be here for the December board, but I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce to you David Florio, my Chief Deputy, who will be reporting direct to Jano as of my departure date, and asked him to join me to help address any questions or comments you may have with respect to the staff summaries.
Any questions or comments? Well, Jeff, we're saddened to learn, but hope and trust that you will have a fruitful and rewarding retirement.
Thank you, Fred.
If there are no questions, may I have a motion? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Yes, Mr. Weisbrot.
Just had one question on the Freeport restrictive covenant. I know we're approving that because of a new development that is being planned for that site. Could you tell us, will that site have any affordable housing? And to what extent do we, as presumably in favor of transit-oriented development, influence, affect, or use our powers to help address the direction of development on sites where we have some influence, and particularly with respect to affordable housing, as transit entities around the country are doing?
Well, I'll say that first, I would say that this was presented to us by the town sort of after the fact, frankly, I think to clean up a title defect that they had not focused on before they issued their RFP and had gotten very far down the road with a developer. It's in the nature of a deed restriction requiring use for parking, and as described in the staff summary, what we've done is, swapped it out for other land where we will have the same protection from the point of view of the transportation. In terms of the larger policy question, we did view this as an accommodation. We had probably, 2 years ago now, I think quite a fulsome discussion at the board level about the extent to which the MTA should or should not be exercising its sort of bully pulpit, if you will, to promote affordable housing. The upshot of that discussion was that we absolutely should be encouraging affordable housing, but I think not as a sort of not in a way that would be inconsistent with maximizing our asset value. In this case, frankly, I think that previous discussion is largely irrelevant. I mean, I think that there would be, if the board is so inclined, an opportunity here to suggest to the town that this is inadequately providing for affordability. It is my understanding that it's market rate, but has a substantial senior housing component. I will say my own personal view is that it's important for us to be encouraging transit-oriented development generally, and I think we viewed it at the staff level as being our sort of primary objective and purpose here.
The previous proposal and the one that was referenced was Mr. Pally's.
I will be more than happy to. Right. This is like 3 years ago. We had this discussion regarding a project in Westchester County at length as to what MTA's role should be. This individual project does meet state law with regard to the requirement of affordable housing. We ended up strongly encouraging municipalities to include affordable housing to the percentage they wanted to in any project that we had a part of, but we did not, in the end, over my objections, but that's okay, require any specific amount other than the floor, of course, being state law on Long Island, where there is a state law requiring a certain percentage of any project over 5 units to have affordable housing. Mr. Reckler is shaking his head. He knows what I'm talking about. He's developed many affordable units within his projects. So any project on Long Island that is a TOD requires that. Other communities may or may not have that. Communities on Long Island are free to go above the state law, and many of them have done so, and we obviously have encouraged that, but at that time, we did not want to get into a situation where we were requiring a certain amount.
I just note
Or that we would, forgive me,
Okay.
or that we would be compelled to regulate them.
That's correct.
Right.
That was a very big issue
That's correct.
for this board.
Right.
Mr. Weisbrot.
I don't want to revisit former board policy, although I do note, as Mr. Rosen indicated, that this particular matter is somewhat separate from what the board addressed 3 years ago, and also note, just in response to Mr. Paley, that in this particular case, there is, in this, as I understand it, 0 affordable housing in this particular development, not 5% or not any other amount. So, I mean, okay.
Sorry. I apologize. What I meant to say is that I'm not aware of a specific requirement. I'm confident that they are complying with whatever the applicable underlying local laws.
I wasn't meaning to suggest that you were familiar with, or that Freeport was not complying with state law. I'm simply noting that, as you indicated, that this particular development has 0 affordable housing associated with it. And
What do we know that to be?
when we do have an opportunity to use our leverage, And again, this is not quite in line with what the board policy that was approved a few years ago was, but in a sense, an extension of that. I would just urge that we do exercise our leverage when we can. And I realize this is very far along, so for me, I'll abstain in this matter.
Mr. Merdler, then Mr. Reckler.
I'd like to give a slightly different cast to the prior approach. We had this debate out with John Ballin of Westchester screaming no affordable housing, Merdler screaming more affordable housing. The issue really gets to the following, and it's an issue of principle that people have to think about, and that is, do we as a governmental entity have either a moral or a statutory obligation where the opportunity presents itself to secure affordable housing to affirmatively push for it? I think so. That was not a view that was held at that time, nor has it, I think, been a view, except on the part of Jeffrey and staff, to do that since then. It is something you may want to revisit, but that's the basic division. The most prominent part of where that problem manifested itself was Westchester County.
Mr. Reckler.
Yeah, I just would like to just take a different approach to this. I think that if you wanted to think about us as an agency trying to promote change, it should be about the economic vitality of the region. And there's certain areas where affordable housing makes sense, and there's certain areas where, frankly, an economic generator, like places like Freeport, like places like Glen Cove, like places like Hempstead, that frankly have a lot of affordable housing but don't have a lot of people that are there spending money and driving the growth of their economy, that certain projects should just, I think, be thought of in that context, in that lens, and not limited to just affordable housing as a standalone, even though I think that's an important element throughout the region as well.
May I be specific? The issue turned next to Harrison, New York, where there was an application to build in the parking lot. And that was where the effort that could have been and should have been made wasn't made. That's the kind of thing we need to think about as a policy matter, in my view.
No, actually, I need to correct that, Chuck. There was an affordable housing component there ultimately, and the point was that it was subsidized by the county rather than by the MTA, which was the outcome that we had been angling for all along.
If we're done with the questions, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Mr. Weisbrod abstains. The real estate action items are passed. And now, motion to adjourn is in order. Second? All in favor? Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.